The true beginning of esports will likely be debated for a very long time, but there are a few events we can point to long before the real explosion in popularity. Class is in session, and gaming expert AJ Fry is here to give us a brief history. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Okay, so where does it all start off?
Well, I mean, this is a debatable question. We can certainly look to the early 1980s. Of course, video arcade cabinets would keep track of high scores, but it was in 1981 when Twin Galaxies was formed, and they kept track of the highest of all of the high scores. They also held tournaments throughout Southern California and all throughout the United States. You know, arcade cabinet tournaments where people were competing.
People would travel to those places and play.
This is not like our modern esports where people are competing on computers against one another. This is two arcade cabinets sitting side by side, staring each other down while you're trying to get your high scores.
Okay, so let's move to the 90s. This is really my vintage.
This is where things really started to pick up. In 1997, the Cyber Professional Athletes Association, or League, I should say, was formed. Of course, 1999 was kind of a big turning point. This is when we had our first real esports star. You can see the peripherals right there. His name was Jonathan Fatality Wendell. He was then just 18 years old, but he was winning hundreds of thousands of dollars in first-person shooter competitions. Looks like he's playing Painkiller up there on the screen. And while Michael Jordan was selling shoes and sports peripherals, this guy was selling all kinds of computer gaming products.
Okay, so a star in his sort of specific, is a niche star. When did it become sort of an international thing?
Well, actually, speaking of international, the game StarCraft became so huge in the early 2000s over in Korea that their government actually had to create the Korea eSports Association to monitor and regulate the growing industry, because at that time, faster, more reliable internet connections actually made competitive online gaming way more viable. So we started to see this larger explosion in games that had burgeoning esports scenes.
Okay, and now, then it was big, but now it's really exploding.
Well, yeah, over the last 20 years or so, we've seen more and more games supporting these, tournaments. You got Call of Duty, it's one of the hugest games out there. League of Legends have been going strong for, over 10 years now. And we've got big games like Rocket League that are bursting onto the scene. Of course, Dota 2 is happening as well. There's the whole fighting games community with, Smash Brothers competition.
So do these leagues pay, I don't want to go rogue on you here, but do these leagues pay attention to what games are becoming very popular?
Yeah.
And then they decide, all right, we're going to make this a tournament?
Well, actually, League of Legends, I mean, this is going to tie into something we're going to talk about in a second, but League of Legends and Dota 2, they're both of the MOBA style of game.
Yeah.
And they were both born of the same mod for, I believe it was Warcraft 3 thing that was created by, players.
Yeah.
And it became so popular that competing games decided, we're going to latch onto this format and create an esports scene where people compete against one another. And they are both huge. In fact, this weekend is the international.
That's right. So this is 2015, right? Yeah. 2019 is just a few years later, but it's a lifetime in sort of...
Well, yeah, as games are growing, we're getting these new games like Fortnite, and this is Dota 2. This is the international. This is happening this weekend. It's got a prize pool of nearly $34 million. The top teams from all over the world come together to compete head-to-head for this. Of course, Fortnite, just back in July, we saw Bugha take home the top prize of win the solo competition in Fortnite. He's only 16 years old. He won $3 million.
He won $3 million.
Yeah, so, I mean, Fortnite is part of the Battle Royale game mode, I should say, that is incredibly popular. There's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, there's Apex Legends. Fortnite is, one of the big ones out there in the scene. But yeah, games are paying attention, or game developers are paying attention to what's popular and trying to build onto that.
Okay, so what are they paying attention to? What are the trends that we should be looking for in the future? Where does this go?
It goes to all kinds of places. I mean, VR is right around the corner. We'll start to see some of that. But of course, if you want to talk about things that are coming up in the immediate future, in September, we're going to see the conclusion of the second season of the Overwatch League. This is something that I'm particularly passionate about. Unfortunately, our local boys, the Toronto Defiant, didn't make the playoffs, but the Vancouver Titans are actually heavily favored to win the whole kit and caboodle. This is coming in late September.
How big are these teams?
So in Overwatch League, you have teams of 6v6, but you might have multiple players on your team subbing in depending on the map.
You got a bench. You got a deep bench, right? Okay.
Yeah, you have a deep bench, and you have farm teams as well, and then you have college teams. It's just like traditional sports where players are scouted and considered who's going to fit into our lineup, who's going to take on that role that is otherwise not functioning on our team. There's trades.
And what sort of arena are they playing in for something like this? Just to give me a sense of context.
It depends on the venue, but actually they just announced this week here in Toronto, our Toronto Defiant are going to be playing at Roy Thompson Hall for their 2 home games in the next season in 2020. So, yeah, sometimes it's big sports arenas, sometimes it's theaters.
Incredible. And looking forward to next year?
Well, I mean, there's you're going to see more of what you're seeing this year. This year was the first year that esports alone crossed the billion-dollar economy mark, and that's regardless of the $19 billion that the video game industry has on its own. You know, so for anyone out there saying, "Oh, this esports thing, it's just a fad," I mean, it's
not.
game over for you, buddy. It's not game over for esports.
Hey, AJ, thank you so much, my friend.
Real
I
pleasure,
appreciate
Ben.
it.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.